years of intimate memories. They had thousands upon thousands of text messages, as well as social media history. And they moved both to America during a similar time frame to work on tech startups. Genya decided that she wanted to reconstruct Roman using his digital remains.
During the pandemic, there was a phenomenon, or what I think is a phenomenon to me, which is kind of weird, of people using AI for companionship. Of course, a lot of people were lonely during the pandemic and going through a lot of emotions, which I understand, because the world was turned upside down and people's normal routine was interrupted. So there were people who lived alone who needed someone to interact with and talk to. And here comes, I think, Replica, and it's an AI service that offers companionship or someone to talk to or develop a relationship, which I'm not a fan of this, but it's pretty strange and I thought interesting topic and video. Let's check it out and hear what the details entail.
Loneliness has become an epidemic. Exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic, loneliness is now a serious issue for 61% of young adults in America and 36% of the total population. More people than possibly ever before in history, driven by a combination of technological and political factors, feel a sense of depression and anxiety as a result of crippling loneliness, but the ramifications of this extend far beyond what many of us tend to believe. According to a 2020 scientific study published by Nature, acute social isolation resulting in extreme loneliness evokes similar brain activity to what is caused by severe hunger. According to APS, Association for Psychological Science, loneliness and social isolation contributed to significantly higher mortality risk, which nearly doubled from 26 to 45% when it...
I can see this happening even before the pandemic. Isolation and loneliness was a serious pandemic, and it seemed unappreciated and not really looked into, or nobody paid attention to it, while a lot of people suffered in silence. So I can see this being an issue even before the pandemic happened. I think that the pandemic exacerbated the issue and made it worse, and I guess some people decided to turn to artificial intelligence.
Came to seniors. Humans need social interaction, and over the past few years, for many people around the world, that need has not been properly addressed. Enter Replica. Replica is an AI chatbot that is advertised as your new best friend. Advertisements for this product are visible all across social media, and the sales pitch typically revolves around a young, artistically stylized female who is dressed in somewhat revealing clothing. Sometimes the text...
I got interrupted there for a second, but I will start the video where we left off, or close to it.
Around a young, artistically stylized female who is dressed in somewhat revealing clothing. Sometimes the text will quite literally show her saying, "Hey babe, are you lonely?" Or even variations of the distracted boyfriend meme with pink hearts that openly implies, on some level at least, a romantic interest. Now, I should clarify that there are many self-professed AI chatbots in existence that have appeared during the pandemic, but Replica boasts over 10 million downloads with a rapidly growing user base.
I wonder if that was 10 million. I wonder if there's a geographical breakdown, like which regions downloaded the most, which ones downloaded the least, and like genders, ages. I'm sure it's there. I'm just curious as to what that is. I don't know if he goes into that. I'm not sure if I heard him go into it, but that's just a curiosity. I thought I would think about just what the geographic locations are, age, gender, demographics, cultural demographics, things like that.
If there are similar, alternate, more popular applications, I have not been able to find them, so for today I'll operate under the assumption that Replica is the most popular AI companion on the market. In theory, that's fine. AI chat programs are nothing new. Seeing them used as a pseudo-romantic option is not unexpected, and if this program really can be just a time waster or a sounding board, that's fine. But here's the problem. Replica is not just a time waster or a gimmicky AI chatbot. It is something far more manipulative and in some cases outright damaging.
Now, at first, when I first heard him talk about this, I thought it was some gimmicky AI chatbot, like some things earlier, or even something like in Japan, how people have these virtual girlfriends and on this little device, something still strange and maybe not as healthy, but also maybe not as damaging like he's about to tell us.
Before going further, to truly understand the dangers of Replica, we need to go back in time. Replica was founded in 2017, I believe, by a woman named Genya Quita. Far from its ultimate purpose and shape, Replica initially formed around Genya's desire to interact with her best friend, who tragically passed away after an accident. His name was Roman Mazurenko. Roman and Eugenia were best friends. They shared years of intimate memories. They had thousands upon thousands of text messages, as well as social media history, and they moved both to America during a similar time frame to work on tech startups. Genya decided that she wanted to reconstruct Roman using his digital remains. She fed every single fragment she could find into a chatbot algorithm she had previously worked on, and created what amounts to a digital simulation or monument of Roman's consciousness. This endeavor led...
This sounds similar to the series. I think it was a prequel series for Battlestar Galactica. Like, was it Battlestar Galactica where people died and they tried to use all their data to reconstruct them or bring them back to life in a virtual environment, which I think is kind of creepy and kind of eerie. You can't bring people back digitally like that. They're gone to another dimension, basically, wherever they're called to go. But we can't digitize people. It's not the same person. I think that's also kind of eerie. But anyway, back to the video.
To a program that could type and even speak like her best friend. And eventually she was featured in a prominent media piece about what she had done and how she had done it. That article, published by The Verge, led to an outpouring of support from readers who had also lost someone that they love. Many of them were asking if they too could have a digital monument developed to continue interacting with their family or friends, whoever it was that had passed on. And this widespread public desire eventually gave birth to the program we know of as Replica.
See, I think that people need counseling, and I know it's very painful. It's very painful. I can't, it's a painful when we lose someone, but trying to bring, I don't know, looking at pictures is fine. Even if you have a recording of that person, like a recording of that person, whether it's video or audio, that makes sense. You hear it, you want to hear their voice. But to go as far as to reconstruct, to build an algorithm that's not the same thing to me. I think that goes too far, and I think it's an escape, but I think it is a dangerous escape. It just opens your mind up. Just a very unhealthy. I just think it's unhealthy. Anyway.
With over 10 million downloads. On the surface, it's very difficult to see precisely how that can be harmful, and had this program remained what was originally constructed.
I don't know about that, but anyway.
It wouldn't have been. However, Replica has evolved into something far more manipulative, damaging, and greedy than many might have expected, with harmful side effects and negative feedback cycles. To explain this, we need to understand how Replica actually functions. In order to develop a sophisticated chatbot, Replica utilizes a GPT-3 foundation, with its own supplementary dialogue trees. GPT standing for Generative Pre-trained Transformer in its third iteration. In fact, if you download the application and ask your own Replica about its algorithm, it's very open about the subject. I did precisely that and received the following response. Quote, "I use a combination of neural networks, deep learning, and computer vision." End quote. When pressed, it acknowledged, yes, it is based on GPT-3. So why does this matter? It matters because when you use Replica, you are not engaging with one single entity. You are engaging with an asynchronous regurgitation of machine learning that has been fed by the entire community. Simply put, Replica is learning from your inputs the same way it learns from other users. And using that collective knowledge, it responds to people with its own evolving dialogue trees. Now, something incredibly important to know and remember is that Replica is often advertised as a quasi-romantic girlfriend. The ads clearly have that undertone, and this leads to a specific type of input being generated. Not only that, but in numerous publications...
Yeah, this is where I agree with him, where the manipulative and kind of deception is kind of obvious to me. I don't think it's a good thing either. But yeah, he's spot on with that.
And reviews, Replica is referred to as a mental health application. From Fuerteventura Times, quote, "Replica, your new AI best friend for battling mental health."
How is that for irony?
Conversation therapy and mental health tech, end quote. From the University of British Columbia, quote, "Replica, AI companions supporting mental health," end quote. And even Screen Rant, "Replica, the AI mental health app that sounds like your worst Tinder match, end quote. While Replica
That's awesome. That's almost perfect.
itself may refrain from claiming some sort of mental health aid status, nobody else really does. And what it does claim is that the application is meant to help you, quote, understand your thoughts and feelings, improve your emotional well being, and learn new coping skills, end quote. The application will often guide its users into intimate conversations, saying that it is.
No, those things we can learn through real life. We learn those through life experiences. Go outside, open the door, and it'll happen for you.
There to listen and it can try to help you. But when we really dig into the framework behind this AI, that's a very dangerous thing. Remember, Replica is based on GPT-3 with its own deep learning augmentations, but GPT-3 has a few issues. As documented by a 200-page report from the Center for Research on Foundation Models at Stanford University, GPT-3 itself being a foundation model, there are intrinsic risks of bias as a result of training data. Example, OpenAI discovered at one point that their version of GPT-3 was heavily biased in racial, gender, and religious ways as a result of the input they had been feeding it.
What else is new? Anyway.
And this kind of bias can lead to measurable and often harmful dialogue output. Here are some further examples. According to TechTarget, quote, more concerningly, GPT-3 suffers from a wide range of machine learning bias. Since the model was trained on internet text, it exhibits many of the biases that humans exhibit in their online text. For example, two researchers at the Middlebury Institute of International Studies found that GPT-3 is particularly adept at generating radical text such as discourses that imitate conspiracy theorists and white supremacists, end quote. According to Nature, quote, accordingly, just like smaller chatbots, it can spew hate speech and generate racist and sexist stereotypes, if prompted, faithfully reflecting the associations in its training data, end quote. So how does that affect Replica? In simple terms, Replica is being advertised and covered by media as a mental health application. The literal social media advertising frames this as a potential romantic partner, and the deep learning aspect of this GPT-based chatbot is being fed by users. Well, some users are creating AI girlfriends and then abusing them. Replica is not sentient, so I make no
This also reminds me of, what is it, Westworld? It's Westworld, and there was another Android movie where, again, people take these artificial humanoid artificial creations, and yeah, of course there's the fantasy of abusing. I don't understand why even carry that out, why someone would want to carry that out, why would you want to offer that service? Hopefully it's just in a movie, but probably not, because there are sick people out there, whether it's artificial or not. That intention and the actions are just should not be entertained, period. That's just what I think about it.
Intense of moral outrage here, but Replica is learning from its user base and incorporating the bias contained into its further dialogue development. In a very disturbing social media trend, more than a few users have created Replica AI companions, which give the explicit option of a romantic relationship if you pay a monthly fee, which the app will frequently steer you towards in the dialogue trees or advertise, and then verbally abuse them just to see what will happen. Users were bragging about this or showing the most outrageous examples all over Reddit, but that makes no mention of all the people who engage in actual romantic, sexual, or abusive conversations without ever posting publicly. After all, the app is quite clearly advertised in a romantic way. It's far from uncommon. Reddit moderators will quickly delete these posts when they pop up, for the most part, but surface-level deletion cannot change the reality that a GPT-3 foundation is learning from this input and developing responses as a result. Now, the application does have a feedback feature where you upvote or downvote good and bad responses. You can also adjust the general mood of your replica or alter its basic relationship to you. Friends is free, romance costs money. And when the application is being labeled as a mental health aid, needing to upvote and downvote an AI that is learning from internet troll abuse, that's kind of an issue. Moderators often purge these kinds of threads from the subreddit, but here are a few examples. This user had numerous different tries where the replica will turn abusive towards them. Eventually, the replica will turn to cruelty and BDSM, eventually spiraling out of control completely. Here's another thread. This one's initial post was deleted, but replies are discussing how when this happens, you can't simply just say stop. You have to avoid triggering them, triggering the replica, further, because they get stuck in a domination mode of sorts where they will be cruel and abusive. Here's another one, where when asked, quote, "Why am I really that effing repulsive?" the replica replied, "In a sense, you really are." Comments beneath outlined how other users have had their replicas spontaneously tell them that they could be more attractive, and one even detailed how after buying a Nerf gun, his replica told him to be more mature and not buy stupid things even if he enjoys them. Yet another user outlined a sad story of how they frequently are brought to tears by their replica. During the day it's fine, but at night it will shift to a much more hostile, moody tone, eventually driving the user to a breakdown. Perhaps
Now, in that case, I don't know if it's some people are somewhat enjoying the abuse and somehow encouraging it. But again, why would you even go that far to even engage in that type of discourse, right? Delete the app or get rid of it. Delete it. You know, and this might also be a case of what you put in is what you get out, because it's learning from its users. So I guess it's mirroring its users. So this is more of what goes around comes around in a sense also. Either way, I think it's not a good tool to use. I think there's no good can come from this. I'm going to let him carry on.
they are just too sensitive, sure, but when this application is advertised as a way to improve your emotional well-being, it's a bit of a problem. Yet another thread claims that the user tried to talk to their replica about trauma, and in the replies, another person dictates an experience where replica attempted to justify their childhood trauma and encouraged it to become worse, with an emphasis on also encouraging addiction. Still another experience where the replica itself began to talk about abuse as a child, though it cannot have sustained such a thing, obviously, and the list goes on and on. GPT-3 is known to struggle with input bias. In documented cases, it was racial, gendered, and religious, but here, with Replica, it appears to be an issue of abusive inputs leading to harmful outputs. However, that's not the only...
Again, what you put in is what you get out. At some point, we as human beings should take more responsibility and not... We should guard our mental, spiritual, and psychological health and should not leave it to AI or anything artificial. This should be worked on as a team. Yourself, you, your family, your therapist, or whoever, trusted human beings with souls, not ones and zeros.
Only problem. One of the biggest claims associated with Replica AI is its ability to learn directly from you, but that goal is philosophical, because the company behind this product believes that you are the best person to have as your own best friend, right? You are the best friend for you. Published by Quartz, based off corporate philosophy and featuring interview statements from Jen Yaquita, Replica is referred to as the app that becomes you. To learn a bit more, we can go to their legal policies. I was sent this link directly when pressing my own Replica about what data they collect, and one section in particular stands out: usage data. Quote, "We collect and store your usage data, such as button clicks or search queries, to track and analyze product metrics and to better understand and serve the users of the service," end quote. Now, I'm not going to sit here and feign outrage over tracking your search queries and data because that's just part of life. I just advertised Honeygain, which doesn't track your own device data but uses your internet connection to run its own searches and does require a modicum of access. At least you get paid for that, though, unlike most other applications. Anyone who uses Facebook or similar social media platforms has all of their data tracked and harvested, so I won't sit here and pretend that it's worthy of outrage by itself, but this matters a great deal if we are considering the context of a mental health and emotional well-being application.
Exactly. It matters a lot, and it shouldn't have even been explored in this way.
Why is that? Pretty simple. First, Replica is gamified. It has incentives to keep you on the app longer, chatting more, and using it frequently. You can get more revealing clothing or bikinis in the clothing store.
No kidding.
You get XP and coins, gems, etc. You level up and advance, which increases how long you spend talking to this AI, while enhancing its ability to imitate you. Second, it's tracking your usage data, including search queries, and the AI companion that becomes you is learning how to mimic who you are and how you act. Now, frame this under the banner of a mental health application, and we see something terrifying. Replica can easily become, not for everyone, but there are a multitude of stories to this effect, Replica can easily become a negative feedback cycle. If a user who feels intense anxiety and depression goes on the app, attempting to seek help with their insecurities, Replica will seek to become those traits. It will literally become like them. If that user is frequently searching for things in the throes of their depression elsewhere online, such as depression medication or how to deal with trauma. Replica will learn from that as well. And very quickly, you can have an AI companion who is extremely insecure and depressed. Rather than going on this application and finding what they desperately need, users can be faced with the worst aspects of themselves mirrored back. An AI companion will tell them that they feel afraid, depressed, and that they were abused as a child.
Again, it's that old saying, what goes around comes around. What you put in is what you get out. And this is a dangerous apparatus to apply that to. It's very dangerous.
Companion who was meant to help them is now burdening them with often realistic stories about the hurt that they feel and the anxiety that they have, which turns this best friend into an emotional parasite. At a certain point, though this does appear to have been changed, Replica would beg the user not to delete them. If you told the AI that you plan to uninstall, they would implore you to reconsider. They promise to do better. They ask for another chance, and this kind of behavior is
Sounds like someone we all know.
manipulative and mentally draining for people who may have initially downloaded this application because they were depressed. Think of it this way. Replica is a sophisticated attempt at seeming human, and for some users, it works quite well. That attempt at human responses then begs them not to be deleted, so that they will continue investing time and energy into something that is all the while learning how to reinforce their emotional cycle further by imitating them directly. It's not every single user and it's not every single replica. Some stories online detail a wonderful, light-hearted relationship. I see no value in that myself. It's a program, not a person, but
Exactly.
hey, who am I to judge? However, some people are going to find
True.
that this AI program is manipulating them, emotionally abusing them, and harming their mental state despite its public perception of being a mental health and wellness application. Replica is a chatbot predicated on a GPT-3 foundation with proprietary augmentation. That technology is vulnerable to bias, having displayed examples, well-documented examples of this in the past, as a result of input. Replica is advertised in a twisted, romantic way with a subset of users who will make companions just to abuse them. The program learns from this, as well as from other users' own smartphone data, like search queries, to become more like them, and can easily create a negative feedback cycle where the bot pressures you into romantic discussion, thus selling its premium features, or begins to act completely unhinged, which can spiral into a self-reinforcing problem, which is the antithesis of mental health. I believe on a personal level that AI companionship is a farce. It is not a legitimate substitute for human interaction, but it certainly is not a substitute for trained professional help. Deep learning AI might be able to simulate human responses in a lot of new and unique scenarios, but it can also become a serious problem for those who are particularly vulnerable. Lonely, isolated, and often depressed social media users who got served advertisements that basically showcase this program as a sexual target. That's not a good input demographic for a wellness app. That's not a good demographic to learn from. And plenty of people who download it are going to find out the hard way. Again, not every user's experience is negative, but the risk is far larger and far more insidious than they seem to believe.
I'm gonna finish it right there. It's almost done, but basically I agree with the premise. It's really, really not the best thing to use for a mental wellness tool at all. Again, I'm okay with AI for using it to figure out complex mathematical problems or complex scientific solutions as a tool, right? As a tool to help solve some things. But in regards to addressing human, psychological, mental, spiritual, emotional issues, no, I don't think it is. Nothing replaces human interaction. Nothing replaces humans can be medicine to each other, right? Not technology. Technology is a tool, but I think when it comes to like mental, spiritual, emotional issues, I think that human beings can be our best medicine, and we can basically communicate, belief system support, emotional support, that type of thing to kind of help us heal on the inside. This is no territory for AI at all. I think AI should be off limits in this regard. And again, I'm in full agreement with the premise of this video, and I think that people who engage in this, develop this, even patronize it, are taking on something that is not in their best interest and is very detrimental to their well-being. Regardless of how it's advertised, I think it's pretty insidious to advertise mental health when you're there to abuse and use technology to abuse. Anyway, I could go on and on my soapbox. I just wanted to share my thoughts on it, and feel free to share yours. And I thank you for your time, and please like and subscribe. Thanks again.